10 seconds remaining.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a Premier League presentation bringing you guys a game between Team Liquid and Team Dignitas. This is a best of 3. This is our second match for Season 4, and I am pumped about it. I'm Blaze, I'm here with Rainmaker, and we are just going to get on to this game in just a few minutes.
Hey, yeah, Blaze, I'm really excited to cast. You know, after that first exciting day between Absolute Legends and Team Empire, I'm really stoked for this tournament. We casted some of the best games I've seen in a very, very long time, and I'm sure between Team Dignitas and Team Liquid, we're going to see something equally dramatic. Oh man, I'm so stoked. And wow, this is a Chaos Knight first ban from Team Dignitas. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really hard to ban against Fluff in general.
Yeah,
just straight up, he's just so unorthodox in his pickups. He tries to do all these little pocket strats and stuff. And one thing, the most recent pro game I saw them play was against Mouse Sports in the raid called 2DL, and they played a Whist, CK, Nyx Assassin, Visage. I mean, all these hardcore, super aggression, just pain train heroes. And I mean, there was just no coming back from it. Right off of that draft, it's so powerful. So it seems weird, but honestly, I could see where they're coming from in that kind of drafting mindset.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit strange to see a CK ban and a Wisp ban, but I think Fluff is basically not allowing Team Dignitas to do anything super sneaky. Bad Rider does sneak through though, and that is a terrifying hero to deal with. If Bad Rider gets that kind of early farm and levels that you'd see, you know, maybe from like a solo mid bat or a bat that's being able to jungle uninterrupted, at about maybe the 12-14 minute mark, Bat can completely take over a game. Blink Lasso for initiation works just about as well as any sort of Wisp relocate gank, so even though we won't be seeing that kind of high action coming from relocate, I think Dignitas still wants to put a lot of pressure on TL.
10 seconds.
Now, interestingly, one thing that they have available now in the pool that we generally don't see is a bunch of AoE initiators. They have the Magnus, they have the Darkseer, both of them completely, I wouldn't say forgotten, but neglected in this circumstance here. They're usually considered first ban, first pick material, but the fact is, the way Dignitas and Team Liquid play is a very, very different style, especially in this kind of clash of the NA Dota Titans.
Right.
It's not going to be what you expect out of a game. So seeing the Darkseer's a great off-laner, he survives well, he still farms up decently, and he can initiate fights very effectively. But instead, what I really like about Team Liquid is they're playing to their strengths. They're picking up a Tinker for Bulba. He loves that hero, he's very dynamic with him, can make some amazing plays with him. And then from there, they also have an Undying, which they can build around so powerfully for presumably a 3v3 intending for an aggressive tri-lane here.
Yep, Tinker's very good against Bat Rider just because Bat Rider, you know, really focusing on pickoffs, but it's very hard to gank a Tinker. He's not in the same spot for long enough to really, you know, without committing a lot of resources, you can't really grab him. But on the other hand, right, while a Tinker's pushing a lane, putting a lot of pressure on your lanes, the other 4 heroes can kind of pick apart your lineup. So there's like 2 avenues of attack, and Bat Rider would really prefer just to set up a team fight by dragging away the primary source of damage, killing it, and then going on the rest of the team, and afterwards transitioning that into a tower. But I don't know how I feel about... I don't think I've seen a team with both Undying and Tinker in quite some time, but there's actually a really good interaction between the Tombstone and just March of Machines. If we see a March first Tinker, that's a ton of AoE damage, and supports on Team Dignitas are going to have a very rough time just surviving that alone.
So do you think Gyrocopter is a must-pick kind of in this situation here? Like you said, there's so much aerial denial, ground control. I mean, the floor is going to be literally lava with these zombies and robots just marching all over the place, swarming, and if they don't have somebody way to counteract it, if they can't be mobile by removing the slowing effect, are they going to be just completely shut down here, or are they going to try to play a different style where they just have a focus mindset? Right here, it looks like they want to run the Templar Assassin versus the Tinker in mid, presumably, because that's more often than not where Bulba ends up taking the Tinker, and from there they could go for either a Bat Rider kind of an off-lane 1v1, or go for a jungle option, but the Lifestealer is an interesting pick there.
Basically what Team Dignitas is doing is kind of the other way to go and deal with an Undying. Instead of going for, you know, a super kind of late game oriented thing where you kind of mitigate the Undying's damage in the early game by saving your supports basically with your Flak Cannon, they're just picking up a lot of heroes that are BKB heroes. I was going to say a Luna, but Lifestealer works in a much more direct way. These are heroes that just don't care about Tinker. They can run at him. You might see a Templar Assassin go for something after Blink besides BKB, maybe like a Desolator if they're very far ahead. I think we saw that in yesterday's game, or I might be confusing this. But But when the BKB, Tinker just doesn't do anything anymore. So what, he can permahex you, you just rage and walk at him, you know? Open wounds is enough to go and completely stop him from escaping. And Undying, you know, again, similarly, doesn't really do much after a certain point, if you don't have that kind of, if you have that BKB, Gyrocopter being picked up by Team Liquid, though, really, this is a very cool lineup. This is a very cool lineup. They can take this into the super late game, and Tinker allows them to do that. Undying isn't going to be his strongest here, but one thing to note is that Soul Rip is still very good even into the late game. It actually gets a little bit better if you're able to go and find a fight in a lane, and the heal is very potent between fights.
Yeah, very, very true. But yeah, the Gyrocopter is going to add in something that I feel their lineup kind of lacks. They have kind of an AoE disabled to an extent with the Tombstone before it gets focused down, and from that time period, Gyrocopter adds in what they're kind of lacking. They don't have a Queen of Pain. They don't have this big, Scream ultimate. They have very gradual AoE damage, and so what they're kind of looking for right here is a little bit more burst, more upfront. Drop down the call down, the first rocket generally will hit on the targets that you selected upon, and then from there the flag cannon will dish out 2, 3 plus auto attacks that will make sure that you're getting that right off the bat, bringing people low, and from there the zombie, the Death Lust, will come into play and be able to chase down the opposition, that kind of thing. And there's not really a way that they have to counteract that. If they are in an unfavorable position, if they're trying to run away, and Undying gets a baller tombstone off, then and the call down follows through with that, they can be chased down really, really far past towers, and they're not going to be safe under tier 2s and such. It's going to be a pretty dynamic lineup. As far as how they want to lane it, I presume the Undying and Gyrocopter will go up top with a very lane present intellect support, so maybe something like a twin-headed dragon could be rather effective in that. The Jashkiro coming up, or anything with a good disable. I mean, even a Crystal Maiden falls under that. But the one big issue they have to keep in mind is Lifestealer is still one of those carries that won't be as susceptible to those magical disables, and they have to kind of have a good focus in mind, possibly needing to ban out or pick up the Shadow Demon in their next selection here.
Yeah, I think Shadow Demon would be a really good pick, except for the fact that they're kind of lacking stuns on Team Liquid. You mentioned that, Undying is kind of the form of their AoE slow, and the Shadow Demon's already banned out, so that's kind of moot. But while Shadow Demon is really great against BKB carries, and Lifestealer in particular, because Shadow Purge kind of turns Lifestealer into a melee creep. He's just like slowly shambling at you, and he's just trying to get those swipes in, but you can just walk away, and like a Tinker with Rearming Force Staff makes Lifestealer super, super sad. But what I think that Team Liquid really wants right now is some sort of like actual lockdown. I feel the Bane was a great pickup here. Firstly, because Bane and Gyrocopter have great synergy together, because you can set up those rockets very, very easily. And then on top of that, a lot of synergy just with the Tinkers too, because the additional nukes kind of stack on each other really well. Because it's like the thought process of getting a Dagon on Nyx Assassin. Nyx can't one-shot someone, but once he gets that Dagon, it suddenly turns into a very deadly hero. And ooh, I'm bad at audio settings. But
Alright, well, we do see the Shadow Demon ban come out. That's very reasonable for the Lifestealer. Demonic Purge piercing on through the Rage stage is going to be really a solid counter to making sure that he is just going to be shambling along, not able to get those big right clicks in, and taking that out is a very reasonable choice for them, kind of going on into it. They do have the first pick, but if they didn't want the Shadow Demon themselves, they definitely don't want it in the hands of Liquid, so they're going to take that out, as well as the Bounty Hunter, which helps out a little bit as far as mobility goes. Gyrocopter is one of those heroes who likes to pick up items like Yasha, more so for the mobility than even for the stats itself. So the fact of the matter is, if you got a track and 20% increase when you're close proximity to an opponent you're chasing down, it will help you close the distance on heroes like Lanaya or the Lifestealer, and Gyrocopter can definitely benefit from that. Of course, they just were also looking for an offlaner, and that just kind of seemed to fit the bill. So they're taking that out, but also interesting ban coming out, the Visage and Lone Druid from Team Liquid. Do you think that would have been appropriate there? I mean, they've already got two kind of semi-carry to carry level melee heroes. Do you think the Lone Druid on top of that would have been something Dignitas was looking for? Or do you think it's just to, I don't know.
Well, I think basically, so Lone Druid in this kind of situation, we might see an aggressive Trial Lane Lifestealer, and then Lone Druid on the safe lane, Lone Druid getting that kind of farm is terrifying, especially in the hands of a player like Aoi or AUI. And that would kind of push them into a very, very strong kind of, 25, 35-minute team. And I don't think that Team Liquid wants the game to end at that point. I think they want to draw it a little bit later and get to the point of the game where Tinker becomes a real monster, where Gyrocopter becomes a real monster. And both Lone Druid and Visage, it just would be a little bit too much for them to deal with a little bit too early. Rubik's a very interesting pickup here. A good nuke and just more kind of single target lockdown alongside that Batrider. This isn't a team with a ton of AoE. If they're not getting those picks off in the early game, I don't think Team Dignitas is going to have a very fun time competing with Team Liquid in the teamfight phase.
Yeah, I think they were putting a lot on the shoulders of Rubik to get some really good spell steals, the Call Down or the Tombstone, or even the March could be
Right.
pretty high potential, even though it won't be able to reset the cooldown, and he'll have to deal with that factor. But the interesting pickup here, the Clockwork, getting kind of like the Keen group with the Tinker, the Gyro, and the Clockwork all falling under the same lore-based race. But beyond that, it's just they have a lot of technical potential to go for big pickoffs, control a specific area, going in for a hook shot, following that up with Cogs and a Call Down and a March on one spot. Whoever is stuck in that position is going to be kind of screwed over. The only one that's going to be going for Force Staff is Bat Rider in towards after the Blink Dagger, and possibly a Rubik later on. So the Force Staff still forces you to take the Cogs damage, but at least you're going to be out of the chaos that ensues outside of that position with those other factors. But one of those heroes that I mentioned was kind of neglected early on, the Magnus, really rounding up this lineup. But you were talking about the lack of AoE. This is where it kind of comes into play. That you get the AoE damage from the Empower, you get nice nuke from the Shockwave, and most importantly, you get a good AoE disable. If Clockwork initiates on in, Undying wants to be close to the action as well with his Flesh Golem, so all in all, those two jumping in alone will set up Magnus for a pretty solid polarity.
Yep, and also you get to go and play the Nyx Bomb game. I think it's going to be very, very scary for Team Liquid as soon as Magnus picks up a Blink Dagger. We were talking about earlier, the biggest problem with Lifestealer is that, you don't have that mobility. But now when Lifestealer can infest a Magnus, Lifestealer is empowered, jumps into Magnus, gets an RP off, Lifestealer hops out with his infest, does a ton of AoE damage, and believe me, that infest damage is probably the most underrated part of Lifestealer's kit, because it is pretty huge and the AoE is like fairly large as well. And then how many right clicks do you think it will take to go and kill the entire Team Liquid team? None of these heroes, with the exception of like Clockwork, as he picks up items, and Undying, I suppose, is very tanky. Whoa, okay.
Yeah, that
I feel like the flavor of this lineup just changed a lot in these last two picks. This is really cool. Flesh did a very interesting job drafting this.
Yeah, especially leaving those two picks for the last, like you said, it just kind of changes really what they're looking at here. Like, it was going to be like, okay, well, they have an aggressive tri-lane in this circumstance, but I think they might want to actually go, since they're on the Radiant, go for the Enchantress in the Dyer's jungle and put out pressure in that regard, maybe do a little bit of aggressive pushing on top of the damage that they're putting out. I'm not exactly sure why Enchantress is, like, the hero that they want to go with here. I mean, maybe it's something weird between the fact that Lifestealer is attack speed reliant and you might rank up the Untouchable later on. I mean, I don't know what makes Enchantress really, in their mindset, the best option here. The fact is, she is a great push-oriented hero. She has a lot of early game presence just right off the bat with a rank 1 enchant. But all in all, it seems odd to kind of throw it in at the last second. I think that they had it in mind as they were going into things, but it's just kind of, it's going to be weird how they make it work. I definitely think it's a good pick. I'm trying to get in their mindset and see how they came to that decision.
Yeah, I think that also there's a good amount of synergy here. Like, Enchantress is one of the reason that I think like Enchantress is kind of comparable to Chen is just because firstly your pushes are a little bit earlier, so it provides you a little bit more buffer in the early game. You can get a bit more of an advantage that way. And secondly, I think she combos with Clockwork quite well, because Clockwork by nature is a very aggressive hero, and Enchantress is like Chen. She can put out a lot more damage, and along with Cogs, you can actually stand and right-click a fair amount with your impetus. Also, Enchantress generally goes for items like Urn instead of Chen, who'd be trying to really get that mech. An interesting question here is who's going to get the mech on the Radiant team, and I think it's actually going to be the Clockwork. It's a great pickup for him, gives him the... Anyway. So who do you think is ahead right now? Because I definitely feel Team Liquid's got the best of the lanes. Also, you should you should look at this. Enchantress is going for a Midas build. She's actually going to be doing a lot of damage this game.
Yeah, so I'm going to be ranking up Enchant and Stats right now. That's going to be really interesting going on into it, making sure that she can get the creeps, just continuously possess them as much as possible, have at least 2 at a time very, very frequently, farm down the jungle very rapidly, and also have a powerful slow to set up things like the Troll, Warlords, and Snare. Going to be very effective in that way. And yeah, hoping for some really good ganks. I mean, Skewer is powerful, but there are a lot of ways to lock him out of it. And in general, if Korok wanted to go for kills, he would be ranking up Homing Missile instead of his current options. But it seems like he is just happy to harass the Magnus back when he comes forward, and otherwise just keep himself sustained on the lane with the Tranquils there. In the meantime, TC in a very aggressive position up top, going up against that Rubik and Lifestealer, but Aoi 2000, 18 CS, not too bad in this situation here, and that are actually successfully getting some stack pulling off. So, all in all, I think that Dignitas is doing pretty well up top, but Liquid is controlling very effectively the mid and bottom.
Yeah, I mean, those mid pulls are going to shut down Snaking, who is also one of the premier TA players, I would say. And just basically Santa right now. But Snaking is actually one of the better TA players. After the nerfs, you didn't see the hero very much, but I gotta say, Snake King's insane. He always has kind of like a double refraction up. They'll go into fights, and this is kind of a credit to Dignitas as well. They'll go into fights with a kind of stale refraction charge on the TA, so he'll be able to get 2 cooldowns off, and that's basically 12 instances of damage that are completely blocked. On top of that, his trap usage is insane, so we're gonna see TA kind of play to a very high level today, and I'm excited. Beyond that, though, we're also gonna see like Bubble and Tinker. These are like. This is going to be really cool. It's kind of a clash of very competitive heroes. Do you think that, looking at top lane, it seems like TC is going to be harassed down a lot? Now, I was controlling this lane, but do you think this is a Midas game for Nakes, or should he just go for a really, really aggressive item to try to not let the game even go that late? Because he's competing farm with Korok, and Korok is, they're competitive right now, but Korok will, just by the fact that he can flat cannon down and creep wave so quickly, he will overtake him.
2 things to consider in there is Lifestealer is sitting currently at 1560 at only 4.5 minutes in. They're actually also putting pressure on the tower, so he can get that Midas by the 6-minute mark very, very easily and set himself up pretty aggressively there. Along with that, you are talking about Aoi 2000. I mean, I remember his Broodmother play from times before, and he loves to get that Midas really early on a lot of heroes. He's always about moving in towards the late game and making sure that he has that advantage at that stage specifically. We do see an interesting interaction between Sneak King and Bulba in mid, but without the March of Machines available, I don't think that there's really too much threat for Sneak King to be locked down even more than just a little bit. But yeah, what you're saying, Midas definitely seems like a really good option for him, not only scaling and attack speed, but just in that player's playstyle, he wants to move on in.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just about to say, like, do you think it's worth it to go and counter the Enchantress that way? Like, I agree that it's a good item on Nakes. I think it's a little bit overrated because you don't need the money quite as badly, and he just gets a lot of natural attack speed from Rage. But do you think that in this situation he should be that concerned with the creeps coming out from this Enchantress? Now, they haven't seen her coming out of woods yet, but, oh my god, dude, this Enchantress beat Aoi to the Midas.
Yeah. Fluff just all over that. I didn't even pick up hardly any other side items, just going straight for that Gloves of Haste, and yeah, he's going to be able to pick it up very quickly, but it does allow you to one-shot the neutrals. They're kind of temporary anyways, one way or another, but I do feel that it is a good enough cooldown that even if there was an Enchantress on the board, that it still would have been a great pickup and something that I probably would have been looking towards, so with an Enchantress, it's a no-brainer. It's just kind of gravy to be able to break down those creeps really, really early on. In the meantime, on mid lane, Bulba is controlling runes so very effectively. Right now, he is playing very effectively in CS-wise, 25 to 15 compared to Sneak King there, and he has, again, controlled every single rune there, so he has a nice advantage using stuff like illusions to break down refraction charges. He'll be in a great spot going on through.
Yep, I think you also have to credit the rest of Team Liquid for allowing Bulba to do this. That Enchantress is staying off the map very well. You don't know, like, if the Enchantress is just there camping a rune, perhaps with a net already set up. It's very scary for Snake King to leave the lane, and on top of that, Bulba's getting a ton of help from IX Mike, who has now gone to stacking Ancients. This is going to be a very rich Tinker. Oh my god, Bulba. He's taking so much damage from those black dragons. But yeah, Bulba's having a great time. This is basically exactly what he wants to do, and he's going to have a great bots timing. So I think that it's going to come down to how much can this Bat Rider do. Bat Rider, ooh, I thought it was going to actually be a Blink Dagger Rush, he just was sitting on brown boots at about 1400 gold, but going for those Tranquil Boots, and that's not necessarily bad. It gives you a lot of move speed, and I think they want to get something done before, the game goes too late.
Yeah, popping off that tier 2 TP for a very, very sneaky play right here. On top of that, the Smoke of Deceit to move on in. There's really no way that anybody can know what's coming, and Bulba is a very vulnerable hero right now at this early stage in the game. Tinker has no escape mechanism built in, so if he gets locked down and pulled out of position, I don't even think a rank 1 Tombstone will be enough to actually handle it. And now here comes the Firefly. Here comes Magnus, level 4. Going to be doing so much right now. Tinker just completely getting obliterated by the Batrider Lasso, and it's going to be First Blood. Going to Sneak King to start things off very nicely for him, moving in towards Phase Boots immediately. So nice stuff there. And yeah, that is definitely going to put them up on the right note. Bringing his Boots of Traveler's Farm really, really low. I mean, he's sitting now, that was a lot of reliable gold, and now he's only sitting on unreliable there. And all he has is a Soul Ring to show for it. So that's not terrible for a Tinker, but he wants to get those bots ASAP since he's going for that March build and wants to push out the lanes with that.
Well, I think the Soul Ring here was probably the right decision, just because he's probably going to just walk up to this Ancient camp and clear it very quickly. With that level 4 March, it's not even going to take that long. Now, the Dire do know that it's there, but I wouldn't be, like, with the... I've really expected there already to be a Sentry in place for the Radiant to protect that stack, but I'm sure the Sentry will go up, and Bubble will not take very long to clear that stack at all. It's I wonder what Korok's going to go for here. He's sitting at around 2,300 gold. If he wanted a Django, I think he would have picked it up by now. But perhaps we'll see a different item. I can't imagine this is a game where you'd really want to go and start stacking camps with a helm, or going straight Yasha is pretty questionable for rather going straight Yasha is pretty questionable against a team with a Nyx. I'm really wondering what he's In the meanwhile, the phases and Midas are up on the Nyx, and he is going to shred basically wherever he wants to. TC's doing a great job controlling top lane, though. He's got a pretty decent amount of farm, sitting at 17 creeps in 19 minutes for like a clockwork. That's fairly impressive, and he can do a lot of damage. Already level 6 too. I wouldn't be surprised to see him roaming around the map. It's not like he can really contest the Nyx for farm, and with those phases up now, Nyx can basically walk at him whenever he wants to.
Yeah, so that is a lot of mobility going to come out from the lifestealer here. Might go for a drum to follow up just to kind of play that slightly FNC-oriented build, moving towards a lot of really distance closing mobility with the potential to open wounds and then just phase on in. But the fact is, there are ways to lock that down. If you get a good clockwork ulti and he goes for maybe like a Ghost Scepter pretty early on, you can put him in cogs and just force him to sit there and just stare at him. I mean, he doesn't really have any other way of getting around that. He's all about physical damage, and the Ghost Scepter, of course, popping that off and avoiding it, making you ethereal. And I think with that kind of initiation, they can get the disables they're looking for and make it so that the lifesteal is a non-factor in those kinds of engagements there. But of course, it does put a lot on TC to get the right positioning and get up a little bit of farm to be tanky in that regard, and from there, just control the positioning.
Yeah. You know what I really want to see deep in my heart of hearts, Blaze?
Sure.
I want to see an ethereal blade rush from Korok. Could you imagine? Because I actually can, but I really want to see it. It looks like they're going to go for a dive. Magnus is already sitting in position, just kind of waiting invisible. There's no follow-up, though. Actually, he's just going to be leeching experience. I wouldn't have been surprised. I was expecting the Batrider to go and TP down, but he's so close to his Blink Dagger and has been spotted out by this Ursa Warrior. They're doing a great job really protecting these instants.
Yeah, they want to control the Ancients really badly. Yeah. It's been stacked up quite a few times by IX Mike, but they want to make sure that this is a spot they can contest and keep tabs on, though. Everything but the Ancient Black Dragon taken down by Bulba for the time being, sending him much closer to the BOTs. 1433, a good spot for him to keep that going, but the lasso comes on through, actually in the northwest, to being able to pull TC into a pretty bad spot, blocked in by his own cogs just a little bit. Bulba taking a lot of damage. Beautiful ultimate, possibly saving both of them right here. Nice initiation from the Clockwork. That hook saved Bulba's life for sure, and definitely saved him as well, pulling him out of position. Now Korok coming on in. That rocket hits along with that rocket barrage. One more right click is all they needed, but unfortunately gets TA trapped, and the Universe skewering him back on in. The Infest will come out for the last hit, possibly, but no, too much damage from Universe. AUI vulnerable. He is got to run right on out of there, and instead Korok is in pursuit with that Shadow Blade. He's already farmed up so swiftly on the bottom lane. Now going for another rocket barrage. Following up, Rubik's going to drop down. Defensive cogs that were stolen, not going to be enough. And so that is 3 kills on the board for Team Liquid, and a really effective team fight for them. And I gotta say, it all started from that Clockwork. I guess you can call it de-initiation, because he just really pulled it apart, escaped himself out, and kept Bulba alive to pop off a rocket or two. And oh my gosh, that was just a really beautiful fight for them.
Oh yeah, and just great rotation by everyone on the Radiant side, The Fluff was there with his Enchantress exactly when he needed to be, did a ton of damage. That was actually monstrous. It's so easy to forget how much damage Impetus does, because normally you don't see an Enchantress be able to get that many attacks off, but the actual, just the attack speed from the Midas was enough for him to get 3 quick autos on the Magnus, which basically took him down. Universe had a really hard time getting anything done that fight. Wasn't even able to get off of Reverse Polarity, and this is kind of the problem with the long lane Magnus. You don't have the items, and without Arcanes, you can't really support it that easily.
So what about that Gyrocopter Shadow Blade Rush? Korok pulled himself into a beautiful position to bring down both the Rubik and the TA. Oh, big initiation on Rubik. He does have the opportunity to steal a spell, and could actually possibly they could battery assault them each other down and just kind of stand there as they each get mini-stunned up. But either way, that is just a good way to force Rubik off the lane for the time being. He doesn't have a bottle. He didn't obviously go mid. He's a support-oriented hero, and for that reason, he's just going to have to fall back to base, which is enough to continue to allow Bulba to have some breathing room, push out with the March Machines, and farm up what he needs, which I believe he has. Boots of Travels on the Courier, and we're going to see a whole new hero with that cooldown available. They have the rearm up, they have the March Machines, and now every single lane can be pushed out and they're going to start having to actually turtle back and find an opportunity to flank and gank him. Once Batrider picks up that Blink Dagger, lassoing a Tinker and going in for like a 3v1 is a very feasible solution, but Bulba is a very skilled, well-practiced player and knows that kind of vulnerability kind of backwards and forwards.
Yep. And going back to that Shadowblade, yeah, that one's on me. I really should have figured it out, because Shadowblade's actually one of those items where you don't want to buy the components, you know, because like you're just kind of giving away what you're going for. And I think it was just, man, I feel really bad that I didn't catch that. But you know, I just had these dreams Blaze, of ethereal blade rushes against Naxes. It just warmed my heart.
That's interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I think Bulba's gonna really just take over the game now. Though it also drums are just about up on the gyrocopter, so they have a ton of mobility. Looking at it now, oh my god, dude, look at Fluff's farm.
Yeah, it's actually pretty ridiculous for an Enchantress, all things considered. Moving in toward that Scythe of Ice very, very rapidly. Only less than 2,200 off of that, and when he gets it, I mean, yeah, Lifestealer has that 6-second invulnerability, but as soon as that expires, it's one of those heroes that needs to be able to stay on top of things, and obviously turning into a Piglet is not part of that plan. In the meantime, Templar Assassin will always be susceptible to that, the BKB not coming anytime soon, as generally speaking, you're going to see Sneaking go for that Blink Dagger prior to that, and Bulba popping off the Invis might get some harassment out with the March Machine. But actually, Clockwork Initiation really wanted that. If he had hit the hook, it would have been amazing, but unfortunately hitting the creep instead, not going to be able to set him up for the initiation on Sneaking, which would have most assuredly led to his demise.
You know what's actually really funny is that neither of them had detection, but actually that's one of the ganks where it doesn't matter, because just between
Blink, Tide's coming in, gets the initiation on Korok, pulling him back in with the lasso. He can pop off that Shadow Blade, go north, that's what he's going to try to do, but gets stunned up. The Central Ward comes down just to make sure of it, and they are able to drop him down, committing 2 ultis, but a kill this early on in the gyrocopter will definitely stifle his farm and limit where he's going to be able to go from here.
Yeah, I think, though, that perhaps the reverse polarity was a little bit unnecessary. Rubik still had his telekinesis, and committing that reverse polarity means that the Radiant can play so much more aggressive. At level 1, that's a very long cooldown, you know, just, well, not long in comparison to how good it is, but it's still a 2-minute cooldown. And it feels like that was a little bit hasty. They're trying to get something done, and they desperately needed to kill Korok, so I understand the frustration there. But I would say that's probably a bit of a misplay coming out from the Dignitas lineup. A little bit of their frustration showing, because when you go and pick heroes like Batrider and Magnus, you expect more to happen on the map, but just great play from the Radiant team means that it hasn't. And, you know, Bulba's clearing another stack completely uncontested. Shout out to IX Mike. He is, you know, man, like, when you see Undying, you expect, like, this is going to be a super aggressive hero, and, you know, he'll have to get all these kills, but he's managed to pick up level 7 in a very reasonable time frame. You know, he's matching the Rubik, and I don't think he's seen a lane creep die. Oh, he just did now, though, so I take it back.
But yeah, no, I see what you mean, though. The fact that he stacked all these Ancients has allowed the supports to really stay on the board, and in terms of experience, setting them up to actually go, wow, Tides died, getting picked off by that Ghost Scepter, just a Gyrocopter finding the opportunity. Sorry, Shadowblade, don't know why I said that, but the interesting thing is they didn't have any wards there. He just kind of roamed in, he felt he could go in an aggressive position, possibly find somebody turtling up in this position here, and he definitely found what he was looking for, bringing down Batrider before he could get the blink off. So nice initiation there, and now Tinker can push down on the tower, committing the tombstone.
Korok is basically like, he just really misses playing shotgun morph. I think that's actually what's happening here. He just really wants to go around solo killing people, and he's like, you know what? This is close enough, and he's just going and creating so much space for his team. And there's no one that can really contest with a level 4 rocket barrage this early in the game. Like, maybe TA with refraction, and no, like, even that's not enough. Nax will even die to it. Although AUI has managed to go and farm up that armlet quite quickly. He needs to go. Right, so they need to go and start.
Oh, that hook! Oh, TC, that was a pretty easy hook in my mind. A very linear, very close proximity, but misses it. Unfortunately, doesn't get the kill there. Now initiation comes in from the lasso. Batrider, Bulba pulled on in, pretty low right now, and Lifesteal on the eastern end doing a lot of damage too. Reverse polarity committed. They're not going to be able to pursue beyond this, but they've got what they were looking for. The gyro, they took down the Clockwork. They've taken down the Tinker, and now they can actually put pressure on the Tier 1 tower finally. I mean, this is not what they were looking for. They went overextended, they wanted the quick pickoffs, and they didn't get the opportunity to do so. So they're getting disabled up, and now we see the transition into Roche, which is very viable based on the rank 4 meld, bringing down the armor of Roshan down to -3. They're going to be able to finish this off in no time at all, and that's looking very, very successfully.
Was this did the gyrocopter didn't die there?
No, Gyro survived. It was the Tinker and the Clockwork that dropped down. But all in all, yeah, Tinker had the blink, but he was already too far in the action and just got kind of forced down. And Korok is still playing that very aggressive style right here, looking for a little bit of revenge. And I got to agree with you. He's kind of put his shotgun on the shelf and replaced it with a Gatling. He's going in and just doing so much damage. Look at that.
Here's another one.
Rank 4 Rocket Barrage doing so much. He knows his limits. He's not going to go in underneath the tower, but all in all, Korok really just wants to strike fear into the hearts of Dignitas right now.
Yep, and I think one small correction there, the reason that the Dire was able to go into the pit was because the Magnus canceled his ultimate right at the last second, and, you know, that just made it a little bit too scary for even Korok to bravely go in there. But you're right, once that hookshot missed, they really needed to back up there because they really rely on that Clockwork to kind of set up their fights for them, and, you know, TC has done a great job of that so far. So I think they can't get a little bit too ahead of themselves because you're still playing against the Magnus, you're playing against the Batrider. These are repositioning masters, so if your positioning's a little bit off at the beginning of the fight, they're going to very much make you pay for it. Holy crap, that Enchantress has a a Hex. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. I mean, that's such a good potential to farm that up really, really quickly. I mean, most of the jungle CS 125, not a big deal, but it's how active she's been. The Impetus came out, 1 kill, 1 assist, no deaths. It really allows you to just continuously farm, and fluff. Playing a number 4, but prioritizing it like a number 2 or 3, like really just emphasizing farm as the end-all, be-all. Knowing that if they can get that sheep stick up, they can turn these fights into something really, really miraculous right now. Interesting position from Tides. Putting down that ward very aggressively sets them up to take this tier 1, or at least try to. But we are looking for that team fight coming on out. The Flesh Golem pops off. Nice double cogs. Beautiful action there. The Magnus is going to have to skewer on out to survive. In the meantime, Mike just waiting on through, amplifying that damage. Look for something on sneaking. It doesn't have a refraction for 2 more seconds. Will they get the damage in time? Doesn't matter. The Rocket Barrage will follow through. And the Dust, of course, to make sure that kill is secured indeed. And now it's going to be Tides on the run. And with that Blink Dagger, he should be alright. But on the northern end, Bulba's like, okay, there's a team fight breaking out there, but I have such confidence in my team fights that I'm just going to go and pick off a solo Rubik. So that kind of understanding of what's going on and knowing you don't need to contribute to one thing because you can just be so active on another sets them up for a full team wipe right here. 5 kills for absolutely nothing, and that was just really, really good timing. And Dignitas going in, kind of relying on reverse polarity Magnus when he only had rank 3 skewer and no blink. It made it so that Dignitas was fighting a fight that they couldn't take, honestly. And I gotta say, that TC hook really set them up.
I mean, he basically, that was the hook that you dream of. He separated all of the damage on the Dignitas lineup from all of the support, and they just, what are those poor supports going to do? What's that Magnus going to do? Is he going to, like, march through an entire field of little angry robots to go and try to save his TA, who, you know, already died once from that Aegis? Like, it's put them in an awful position. And then the kind of, you know, I keep bringing up the concept of incidental damage in cast, right? And that's so crippling for supports. If you have a Tombstone up, a Tombstone and March basically make Rubik he's almost a non-hero when it comes to teamfights. He's great in pick still, but he can't go and, you know, rescue his allies. He can't really use that telekinesis. He can't get in a good position to Fade Bolt either. The spells he steals, oh my god, but he did pick up a call down. But, like, the spells he steals are going to be fairly limited because, you know, the Radiant lineup can just make a wall.
Yeah, both teams smoked up here, though. They infest inside the Batrider. The Rocket actually not going to reveal anybody but sneaking. Now he actually popped off something, but here comes Tides, pops off the Firefly, wants to do some AoE damage, but there are 4 here going on, and he gets the lasso off on Korok. That's what he was looking for, but a beautiful Cogs pushes everybody away a couple times over. Just auto attacks break on out. Korok doing a lot of damage for AUI. Going to be able to pick off Fluff right here, I believe. Just too much damage coming on through. They both drop down. Korok still alive, though, and IX Mike in pursuit of that Rubik. It was a really nice call down, but honestly, those Cogs were amazing to push back the opposition, control, and break apart the team fight so that they couldn't engage and focus down one target. And from there, we do see the good game called out. It was a pretty brief one, but we just see that momentum shift. Nobody can survive versus Gyrocopter individually, and now we see that, again, as 5v5, the positioning they were in, Magnus couldn't get that polarity off. He didn't have a blink. He hasn't been able to farm barely at all in the position that he started off in. And from there, he is not going to be able to set up his team for victory, and they know if they haven't gotten a reverse polarity from Universe by now, it's possibly never going to happen, and so they do call it a good game, and we're just waiting for the Ancient to fall now.
Yeah, I just want to point something out, and this is something before it got super exciting the last 6 minutes. You know, there was about a 4,000 gold lead about, you know, a couple minutes ago. Let's say, yeah, not even 6 minutes ago. There's a 4,000 gold lead, and normally when you see a gold lead like that, it's kind of like one carry's been farming better than the other, or there's like a huge tower advantage or something like that, right? But this game, that entire difference could be accounted for by the Enchantress having so much money than the Rubik. Fluff designed a lineup, very cleverly, that gave a lot of space for their supports to farm. And the Undying less so than the Enchantress, but more in terms of experience. Undying had a very healthy experience amount, beating both the Rubik and the Magnus on the other team, just due to the fact he could stand by Ancients and, be super happy that way. But they didn't need the Enchantress to be super aggressive, but when, you think of Enchantress, you're like, this is a hero that's going to push very aggressively. And I don't know, it's just so well crafted. Giving an Enchantress a lot of room to farm, that's not something you see a lot of teams do. And I think it's just, as a Dota player, I really like it because it forces me to re-examine how I think of heroes and not just to kind of make assumptions based on, well, I saw Navi do this.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to point out, IX Mike has pretty much the best mustache-based support score, 0-0-11. Just go down through with 11 assists and being able to be participating in pretty much every fight. I mean, he was involved in 11 out of the 15 kills. He got tons of money and tons of experience from that, but he didn't die once. He didn't take a single kill. He didn't need to. He was just there, set people up, kept people going, and was able to kind of be just this walking field of, if you're near me, you're going to die because I have a bunch of people at my back. I'm amplifying the damage and continuously just making the fight better for my team over time. And none of this came from like a tri lane, a bunch of just super easy aggression kills, 3 versus 3 on the top lane or something. This was throughout major team fights, 5v5, and he was able to stay alive, stay on top of it with brown boots, no tank items, just moved around, was in good position to stay active and stay relevant but not drop down. And that's really important for a support player when you have to decide kind of the life or death situation, whether or not you're going to go forward. And he played it out very well and stacked up, of course, to make sure that Gyrocopter and Tinker could both farm very, very extensively. So they got a lot of GPM advantage, and from that, really, AOE 2000 was the only farmed up hero on Dignitas here. So that is, of course, the first game of this Best of 3 series. Sorry we had some issues at the beginning audio-wise, but presumably that's all figured on out, and we'll be able to go on to the next game with no problems at all. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll take the next in just a minute.
Yep.